Hello and welcome back to Ada Pulse, the community-funded news channel, keeping you up to date with all the news and emerging projects that are in and around the Cardano ecosystem. And as we're community-funded, there is no coin shilling, paid promotion. We don't even discuss token price. We're just here to disseminate information and deliver it to you in a way that's easy for you to understand. Now, today we are discussing the evolution of voting systems on the Cardano blockchain, as there's been quite a few. And this is by our veteran writer, LiberLion. And remember, the full article can be found on the Ada Pulse website. And with that, do remember to click the like button, hit subscribe, and hit that bell button so you can get notified as soon as we've got content available. And do share far and wide. We are an educational platform. We do want to reach as many people as possible. But that's enough of that. I'm Josh from ATM Stake Pool, your presenter for Ada Pulse for today. Let's crack on with this. Now, Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano, has always said governance is one of the main pillars in the design of Cardano. Now, blockchain governance implies decentralization if all change is decided by democratic consensus. But currently, and it's like a lot of development that you get in the early days, there is no governance of the Cardano community because it's very difficult to coordinate progress. I mean, even Bitcoin. So the blockchain community love to tell us that it has no CEO. But in its beginnings, the early days was centralized. So you've got to remember, since its developer, Satoshi Nakamoto, was, or they, well, whatever, the one who designed and coded it, and was even the first miner of that first Genesis block. Now, Voltaire is the age of governance in Cardano, and at its first milestone back in September 2020 with the launch of Project Catalyst. So that'll be Fund 1 to most people. And it's still an ongoing experiment which aims for decentralized innovation and collaboration within a blockchain ecosystem. So it's supporting community developments and community voting, distributing money from the Cardano treasury. You can see it in this. I did a video on it, and LiberLion did a video on it on Project Catalyst. So do check that out. There's links above, and I'll put it in the description below. Now, recently, the IOHK team added a new improvement proposal to evolve governance with a simple and transient design. So the existing governance mechanism, which was introduced in the Shelley era ledger, is capable of modifying parameter values of the protocol, including the initiation of hard forks, and the transfer of ADA from reserves and treasury. And actually, that's where this proposal points in LiberLion's article, a SIP for decentralized governance mechanism for the Voltaire era. But that aside, there are essentially two ways you can vote on the blockchain. So let's go through what they are. Off-chain and on-chain governance. Now, the first blockchain protocols like Bitcoin and Ethereum have a fairly spontaneous and social consensus processes which occur off-chain, which basically means so decisions about the protocol are agreed between developers and approved by the miners to be implemented. So with Ethereum now, it's validator pools because they're not mining anymore. And so this process is done informally without network methods. Now, in the off-chain governance of traditional models, any developer can submit an improvement proposal to the community called a pull request. People on GitHub will know that very well. But several more recent blockchain projects have introduced alternative proposals on how to mitigate these process like shortcomings with various on-chain governance models, where decisions are regulated and enforced, well, at least a bit, at the protocol level. On-chain governance involves complex mechanisms, usually holding a certain token, which gives its owners the ability to make decisions. Now, on-chain governance refers to mechanisms that allow developers to spread their improvement proposals on-chain so that it can be put to a vote, essentially. Now, after approval, the improvement is deployed on the test network, or in Cardano, we call it the test net, for a certain amount of time. And then, if there are no bugs, it's executed on the main network, or what we call mainnet. Now, on-chain governance solutions can increase coordination and fairness, but they are also quite risky, as they're more difficult to change once it's been sort of implemented and could be more easily exploited. But then off-chain governance solutions are more likely to be very centralized, since certain participants will control the process. And this can, let's say, tempt manipulation at least, as they are less transparent than the on-chain processes. Now, we assume that a certain degree of coordination within the chain facilitates the efficiency of action in general, but it doesn't solve the human factor. The on-chain and off-chain models both have their advantages and disadvantages, and the suitability of each of them will depend on the scalability of the blockchain, the governance model, and the ecosystem in which it's used. And in some cases, like currently, a combination of both approaches may be adequate to resolve the decision-making process. I mean, democratic governance isn't possible without voting. So in Cardano, different voting systems are beginning to be developed, and both off-chain and on-chain. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the most important ones, 2 off-chain and 4 on-chain. Project Catalyst. Now, obviously, we had to talk about Catalyst first. So in the case of Project Catalyst, any ADA holder with a minimum of 500 ADA in their wallet can register to vote using, one of the new sort of wallets that are out there, and then vote on-chain with the Catalyst app. Now, however, if you go through idea scale, the scrutiny of each project is off-chain. So you can't really call it an on-chain solution. It's not really an off-chain. So it's kind of in this case, a hybrid system. SundaySwap Governance. The team defines the governance system as a layer 2 solution for Cardano-based projects offering this platform as a service. The implementation at the launch of the DEX wasn't possible due to Cardano's current transaction size parameters. Now, governance capabilities in SundaySwap protocol smart contracts require transactions larger than 16 kilobyte, possibly due to, or partly due to the requirement that the script is included in every transaction. But the team expects the parameters to increase over time. But until then, has it created a governance platform called SundayDAO on Discord to discuss governance proposals with the community. Any critical decisions that are addressed in the near term may be subject to an informal community vote, similar to how they voted back in December 21 to select the scoopers for their stake pool operators. I was actually a candidate for that, so we'll go through how they did that in a second. But the government model employs Merkle trees as a means of verifying data without writing all the data to the Cardano blockchain. Now, each voter had to register on a voting form, and what happened basically was that you had to send a certain amount of ADA to yourself. It was a very specific amount with a lot of decimals in it. And the point was, it just monitored the whole blockchain and registered every transaction of that value as a vote. And if you remember the whole big scandal of a bad actor trying to scam people into sending that money to themselves so he could initially, get the vote. And so that way the vote was registered on chain and attested to the election. However, the scrutiny was offline. So although it cannot be considered an online voting system, it's an off-chain system. And again, we could say more precisely that it's another hybrid system. In addition to the Discord platform, a proposals temperature check and DAO discussion forum was created. And that was the SundaySwap Governance. Now, this governance approach is basically a short-term solution for voting on community proposals for more light protocol proposals. And members can vote on a proposal by linking a wallet to the government portal as long as it contains a minimum of 2,000 Sunday. SPOCRA. So SPOCRA, which stands for Stake Pool Operator Collective Representation Assembly, was created in September 2020 as an organization. And it was in response to Charles Hoskinson's suggestion that stake pool operators form a guild to represent their ideas and suggestions to the various entities that manage the Cardano protocol. Because actually at the time, I remember there was a lot of infighting and a lot of toing and froing, so that's how that came about. But SPOCRA pioneered the use of transaction metadata to store immutable ballot proposals and votes on the blockchain for its on-chain board of directors voting. And it was a creation of Adam Dean. He's actually done loads of stuff, well known in the community. And here he is here, if you want to take a look at him. But as reported by Cardano Cube, the SPOCRA project has been archived because it was discontinued. But the open source on-chain governance protocol remains usable and it's in its GitHub repository. And it is important when voting on-chain that the parameters of the vote in question are also stored immutably on-chain. So to this end, a voting proposal specification was defined. And you can find it here. I'll put a link to it below, but this is what it looks like on bootproposal.md. DripDropz. Now, as many of you know, I actually interviewed them, had them on here not so long ago, so I've got a link there. You can check out that video. But it was something we didn't actually talk about in there was their voting mechanism. Now, DripDropz built an on-chain voting system called Native Voting On-Chain and used in the governance for the DRIP token holders, and that was back in May 22. Now, DripDropz was tasked with helping them run a chain vote for version 4 of the Catalyst Circle. It was basically to replace the current sort of circle representatives. Now, through the DripDropz website, you had to connect a light wallet and send a transaction of 2 ADA to receive a registration token, obtaining the voting options. Now, after completing the selections, you had to sign a transaction that returned the registration token of the on-chain vote, and then all of the change from the vote was received back. So basically, then the only cost of participating was the network fee, the transaction cost that goes straight to Cardano. I should add, the team actually got Catalyst funding for the revised version that they used more recently. And it's all completely open source. And as you can see, it's on GitHub for you to check out. Cardano Ballot. The Cardano Foundation's metadata tools team developed an on-chain voting application on the Cardano blockchain, with the premise that it was, a responsible use of the blockchain, voter-friendly, with transparency and verifiability features, considering 1 vote per user, and it was free of charge. So this app was used for the Cardano Summit 22, which took place in Lausanne back in November, so that the entire community could vote for speakers for the summit and could reward the summit nominees. So this is how the Cardano ballot was born. The Cardano Foundation put down their challenge in this article, which I'll leave in the description below, which was the developing of the decentralized voting app. Now, because numerous design models were considered, you've got some using metadata transactions, others using native assets, smart contracts, or even the big one, the Hydra scalability solution, or even the option to reuse some of the older Cardano voting solutions. But 1 vote per user was required, and these other models consider disparate voting power by taking the amount of funds per wallet. So in addition, it should be limited to 1 vote per wallet. The development team process evolved towards a Web3 voting application using the new wallet connector, which is basically a library from the Cardano Foundation. I actually did a video on Cardano improvement proposals a little while ago, so there's a link up there for you to click on. But in there, I actually talked about this particular SIP, which was SIP 30, which was the Cardano dApp wallet web bridge, which basically was a wallet connector that allows sort of any developer to introduce Cardano wallet authentication and connection, seamlessly. The team actually implemented 2 different model types to verify a user's wallet. One was using a bot Discord, and the other was by text messaging. So leveraging SIP 8 message signing and the wallet's share address, users were required to sign a secret message provided by one of those 2 methods. So it was authenticating ownership of the connected wallet. With an understanding of Merkle trees and their importance for verification, the team was able to identify a responsible solution for recording voting, offering transparency and verification without actually using Cardano Layer 1 as a database. Voteaire. So Voteaire, not to be confused with Voltaire, Voteaire is a pretty easy to use platform. So it's focused on the non-technical users. So it allows anyone to create a vote on the Cardano blockchain. All proposals and votes are publicly stored on-chain for verifiability, and the data specification is published in an open source verifiable repository. The developer company, MSVN Distribution Systems Limited, is the parent company of Canucks Publishing and Canucks Staking. The beginning of Voteaire was a request for Ada Ape to build a custom voting solution for the project Wild Warriors NFT. Now, Voteaire uses transaction metadata to store ballot proposals and votes created by SPOCRA but extends this basic concept, like adding multiple ballot types and an easy to use interface by simply connecting the wallet. Now, in order to vote in 2 of the 3 types of surveys that I'm going to go through in a minute, the wallet must be staked in a stake pool, except for the type of policy ID survey. Now, if you vote multiple times with the same wallet, only the first vote will be counted. Now, Voteaire offers 3 types of polls, and each kind of have their own characteristics. So let's go through them now. A simple vote, which allows anyone to vote and uses the balance of ADA in your wallet on a specified snapshot date to determine the voting weight. A delegated vote, which is limited to users delegated to a particular stake pool, whose vote weight will be dependent on the stake to the pool on the snapshot date. A policy ID vote, which is limited to token holders of a particular policy ID. It supports both fungible and non-fungible tokens, and weights of the votes are according to the number of tokens held in the voter's wallet. Epoch boundaries are used to establish the start and end of the voting period. For simple and delegated polls, snapshots of the ledger are taken at the beginning of an epoch before the start of the voting, to account for voting power. Whereas for policy ID polls, the snapshots of the ledger are actually taken directly by the team. Final words. Governance in the crypto industry is taking its first steps, and Cardano is one of the leaders. And DAOs, whatever you consider a DAO to be, are the most developed governance structures. And what's important to many is the research and development of self-sovereign identity, or SSI as it's known, with numerous standards and systems such as DIF, W3, Trust over IP, Kerry, and the issuance of decentralized identifiers, known as DIDs, on Cardano. And that's with projects such as the well-known Atala Prism, but you've also got Roots ID, IMX, and Sidetree Cardano. See, the great challenge in a second generation of applications for governance will be to develop a decentralized and interoperable identity solution between blockchains. So we're not just tied by the amount of tokens in a wallet. You can actually have, one wallet is representing one person. And that brings us to the end for today. Remember, the full article can be found on the Ada Pulse website, along with all the other articles that we don't get a chance to make videos for. And do remember to click the like button, hit subscribe, and hit that bell button so you get notified as soon as we've got content available. And spread far and wide. Remember, we're an educational platform. We do want to reach as many people as possible. And on that note, I am Josh from ATM Stake Pool, your presenter for Ada Pulse for today. That's it from me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.